Hey guys, this is Phil, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at some airsoft fails that likely have happened or will happen to most of us playing airsoft. More than just being embarrassing, some of these fails can actually end up costing you the game, so it's worth knowing what they are so that you can prevent them from happening in the first place. Now, before we get too far into it, let's be very clear. We're not making fun of anybody here. Most of these fails have actually happened to us before, and I myself have fallen victim to them many times in the past. So if you feel seen by this video, just know that I'm right here with you. So let's get to it. Our first fail is, I would have shot you, but my safety was on. How many times does it happen to you? You're behind cover, you peek out, you spot an enemy who hasn't seen you, and you go to shoot and nothing comes out of your gun. And then, best case scenario, they spot you and start shooting back. Worst case, they actually shoot you before you can actually shoot them. Either way, you've lost a great opportunity to gain the initiative on the field. Many players address this simply by keeping their gun off safe anytime they actually leave the safe zone, and that can certainly work. But we prefer to actually train in manipulating the fire selector anytime you come up on target with your gun. The main reason for this is because when you're playing airsoft, your gun can actually flick back onto safe without you realizing it. And if you've already got the muscle memory to flick it off safe when you bring the gun up, you will never fall prey to this fail. So our advice is to practice manipulating the selector as part of your ready up drills. Our second fail is taking the field with an empty mag, or worse still, no mag at all. Now, not having a mag in your gun typically tends to get spotted by one of your teammates, but having an empty mag is a little bit easier to fall into. You know, if you're playing a couple quick matches, you shoot a lot, you take to the field for the next game, you're ready to go, and the whistle blows, you get in a good position, and you shoot your gun, and nothing comes out. What a missed opportunity. The best way to tackle this issue is simply to reload your gun before every match. Make it a habit that before the whistle blows, you reload your gun. That way you will never have to worry about whether or not you have a fresh mag in your gun. Worst case scenario, you've just replaced a fresh mag with a fresh mag, but no harm, no foul. Our third fail is thinking that camouflage doesn't matter in airsoft. We've done a few videos about this in the past recently, and the reality is that lots of players think that because they're playing a couple of quick games, camouflage doesn't really matter. So they hit the field with their gold reflective visor, a sky blue pullover, or even their oppenflash, and they keep getting hit over and over all day long, and they wonder why. Well, it turns out that bright colors make motion much more obvious, which in turn help the enemies spot you a mile away, which gives them a distinct advantage, whether you're playing a quick team deathmatch, a CQC match, or even a longer based objective game. To be clear, we're not saying you have to hit the field with a full-on ghillie suit, but camouflage absolutely does matter for airsoft if it's environment appropriate. Even subdued colors like olive drab can help you blend into your surroundings, and there's literally no disadvantage to wearing that, so why wouldn't you do it? Number 4 is the dreaded blue-on-blue incidents, accidentally shooting your own teammates. Not only does this severely impact your team's chances at winning, but players can get really upset about it, both at themselves if they're the ones doing it, or at the other player who did it. Either way, it's a pretty big oof, and it can happen in one of two ways. The first of which is if you're playing with a group of randoms that you don't really know. Once the BBs start flying, it can be really hard to distinguish which guy in multicam is on your team and which one isn't, especially if your field doesn't use colored armbands for the teams. The other situation is when you fail to communicate your position to your team while you're moving around and you end up shooting at one another. I myself fell victim to this a couple of months ago playing with Chris when he was pushing up against a building and I didn't know he was there, so when I saw someone come around the corner, I immediately started engaging them and I accidentally hit them. This can happen very easily if you don't constantly communicate with your teammates. So generally you can tackle both of those situations by taking a bit more time to communicate with your team and paying attention to where they are generally on the field. It also doesn't hurt to take a second before the game to figure out exactly who is on your team and also positively ID stuff before you actually start shooting at it. Next up, have you ever hit the field and plugged in your gun's battery only to remember that you forgot to charge it? That's a fail, and it's so easily avoided too. I myself made this mistake very early on when I started playing airsoft, and so I got into the habit of prepping my gear the night before. That way, if anything is out of commission, I can figure out a backup before I actually hit the field. And this isn't just about your gun's batteries, it also has to do with your camera batteries if you run one, and your radio batteries. Anything that you need to keep yourself in the game and have a good day, make sure it's ready and in good condition the night before, that way you won't have any issues when you hit the field. Our final example is shouting at players to call their hits. Call your hits is not just the name of our podcast. It's also a common refrain heard on the airsoft field. Players are positive that they're hitting another player, that player is not calling them, so they shout at them to call their hits. This is less of a fail than it is poor sportsmanship, but I'm positive that we have all done this at some point or another. We're shooting at another player who's preventing us from advancing, and they're not calling their hits, so we shout at them to do it. Guys, don't do this. Firstly, it's quite likely that you actually are not hitting that player. You might be misjudging the distance, or there could be cover in between you and the target that you're not aware of, or finally, you could just not be reaching them in the first place. What about if you saw them flinch? Well, just because they flinch doesn't actually mean you hit them with a BB. I myself was playing a game very recently, and a BB zipped by my ear so close that I flinched, and judging by my reaction, you might think that it hit me, but it didn't. It was just that close. Imagine if the roles were reversed. Some guy was shooting at you and you were watching his BBs just float in and drop at your feet. Or you felt that BB graze by your ear or your face but didn't actually hit you. Wouldn't you want that other player to give you the benefit of the doubt? Airsoft is on the honor system, and for that to be meaningful, it has to work both ways. Now, I know there are players out there who don't call their hits. Maybe they're notorious for not doing it, or maybe they only do it once in a blue moon. But either way, shouting at them during a game is not the best way to address the situation. If you play at a field that has refs or staff, you should address your concerns with them, along with any evidence that you might have. If you don't have refs or staff to rely on, you should talk to that player directly in private to address your concerns. If that player is hell-bent on cheating, well, there's nothing much more that you can do about that, but they will build themselves a reputation as a cheater, and players will just simply not want to play with them anymore. Either way, it is not your job to call that player's hits for them during a game, and doing so says more about you than it does about them, so just don't do it. That being said, the biggest airsoft fail of them all is knowingly not calling your hits. If a BB hits you and you're aware of it, it is your duty as a responsible airsoft player to call yourself out. Knowingly not calling your hits is cheating, plain and simple, and it really puts a damper on everybody else's fun. More importantly than this, knowingly not calling your hits devalues everything you do from that point forward. If you had to cheat to win the game, that victory is worthless because you didn't earn it. So be a responsible airsoft player, call your hits, and earn your victories. Hopefully you found this video useful and it helps you avoid some of these common fails in the future. If you think we've missed some common fails, let us know in the comments or come join us on Discord. The link is in the box below. We'll be able to have a chat about it. As always, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.